Traffic car 7. Accident 10th and Union Streets. Ambulance on the way.
You are now entering a community that could be your own. Let's call it Middletown, USA. A city that, by overhauling its traffic enforcement machinery, went from red into black in its traffic accident record. Formerly a daily occurrence, for in spite of a model traffic law, there were drivers here, as everywhere, who respect not the letter of the law, but only law that is enforced. This was Middletown's traffic accident balance sheet. On one side, a high accident rate. On the other, comparatively few convictions for traffic violations. Proof of inadequate enforcement. Too many accidents in Middletown. Yes, and too many in every town. A needless and tragic toll. Throughout the nation, calling among other things for improvement in cities, villages, and rural areas in the volume and quality of law enforcement. To find the index to the volume of traffic law enforcement in your community, divide convictions with penalty for hazardous moving violations by the number of death and injury accidents. In Middletown, when the community found its proper level of enforcement, an index of 15, the result was a sharp drop in the accident rate. The quality of enforcement depends upon more than just the number of citations and arrests. For effective enforcement depends upon a high percentage of convictions with penalties. Quality of enforcement also depends upon making best use of police personnel. By analysis of its accident records and spot maps, Middletown could determine the traffic violations that were causing most of the trouble. And so, by selective enforcement, concentrating its available police at the time and place of these violations, the number of accidents was reduced. The development of a selective enforcement program and finding the proper enforcement index for your community. Two essentials of better enforcement of traffic laws. But we're getting ahead of our story. Let's go back to a basic principle Middletown learned early in its experience. The need for a special traffic division in its police department. A division on a level with other major police functions, reporting to the department chief. Operating under the leadership of a capable, trained administrator. For today, a large city police department can no longer afford to conduct its traffic functions as a sideline. Instead, a well-conducted traffic division is run like an efficient business organization, with specialization the keynote, from the administrator down to every traffic officer. Each of its functions. Accident investigation. To determine causes, gather evidence to support prosecution if the law has been violated. Traffic direction, handling emergencies as well as everyday routine. Enforcement, seeing that motorists and pedestrians obey traffic laws governing use of streets, roads, and highways. When it comes to selecting a police officer, consider his need for special skills, maintaining public goodwill, doing an educational as well as an enforcement job. Knowing when to issue a citation, and when, in minor or borderline violations, a written warning. Resisting all attempts at ticket fixing. Working with the prosecutor's office to prepare court cases. In his court appearance, knowing the basic rules of evidence and testifying clearly without bias. Giving a high priority to service of warrants on those who fail to answer a court summons. Educating pedestrians in safety. using specialized equipment necessary in modern traffic law enforcement work. Yes, today's traffic officer has a highly specialized job, demanding training as well as aptitude. Training for all engaged in enforcing state and local traffic laws, with higher levels of instruction for traffic administrators and commanding officers at recognized training schools. Enforcement that does not depend on sporadic drives or campaigns, but is instead a week in, week out, year-round job. Constant effort to build voluntary observance of traffic laws. Enforcement aided by careful selection of personnel, a vigorous training program, sound planning, continual analysis of accident records. In short, the efficient personnel and operating practices of a well-run business. When all local and state police organizations are doing these things, the high traffic accident rate can be materially reduced, and thus we will take another important step in the action program for traffic safety.